So what do I wish I knew in my 20s? Find out now on this episode of the Unlock Success Podcast.
This is the Unlock Success Podcast. We're helping entrepreneurs around the world dive deep into the keys you need to shatter excuses, believe in yourself, and help you achieve your highest goals. Here's your host, 8-figure entrepreneur and the living legend of internet marketing, Anthony Morrison.
Hey, what's up? Anthony Morrison here, and welcome to a new episode of the Unlock Success Podcast. Happy to have you back and listening to us here and tuning into the show, because I've got an awesome topic to talk about now. I wish I knew in my 20s, right? Now being 38 years old, I can look back on that. It was a very long time ago, and I can give some insight from a business perspective, really from a personal perspective as well, as to what I wish I knew in my 20s. So for all of you that are listening that are in your 20s, this will be a really good episode for you. But obviously, look, we do the podcast for everybody, right? The whole point of this is to give you some insight into my life, into what I've done, into the experiences I've had, the things that have worked, the things that haven't, the mistakes I've made, the successes that I've had, and to help you shift your mindset, shift your focus, change your point of view. You know, so much about success is our vantage point, right? It's where are we looking at it from, and in what capacity are we looking at the road ahead, right? That's a lot of times what will determine how successful we are or are not in life. And so I put this podcast together really to share that with you and to hopefully help you shift your mindset on things that maybe you need to shift it on, right, in order to have more success. So hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully it's a short episode, and it gives you a good break for the week where you can just kick back, listen, and kind of get that refresh that I think we all need in order to stay on track. Now, in this episode, we'll talk about what I wish I knew in my 20s. So I'll preface this with saying that was 18 years ago that I hit my 20s. So there's probably some things that I've now forgotten that I wish I knew. But there's some things that I definitely do. I think that being an entrepreneur at an early age, I think that it kind of takes your focus on certain things in life, maybe away. Like the things that you usually would focus on in your 20s, you don't focus on anymore, because you're doing something that, up until recent times, most people in their 20s didn't do. You didn't find 20-year-olds that were starting businesses as frequently, 10 years, 20 years ago as you do now. And that is because the evolution of the internet and social media and things. And now you can be, 7 years old opening up toys on YouTube and make millions of dollars, right? And all of a sudden you're in business, a completely different world that we live in now than what we did. I would say in my 20s that I wish that I knew how important it was to stay in shape, right? That's probably one of the first things that comes to mind. Is in my 20s, I hit that stride with business. I was super focused on my business. I was ready to grow, ready to explode, thought I was going to own the world, just, the whole 9 yards, like any 20-year-old, right? Especially one that's having success and making a lot of money. And I let my health go. And I struggled a lot in my 20s. In my 20s, I was sick all the time. I mean, all the time. And it made for not a really happy lifestyle, not a very pleasant lifestyle. Simply because I always felt bad, and I always attributed it to my allergies or, this, that, or the other. I never stopped and attributed it to the fact that I ate like crap, I didn't work out, and I sat on my butt all day, right? Like those three things never came to my mind. So I'd say that I wish that I in my 20s, I'd known how important it would be to stay in shape, and also how productive you are when you are in shape, and the energy that you get and you have by being in shape and by focusing a little bit on your health and fitness, right? So I definitely wish I'd known that. I think another thing I wish I'd known was how important time was. I think in your 20s, time doesn't really register. You think life lasts forever. You're 20 years old, right? You're at the beginning of it. I think now hitting, 38, I'll be 39 this year actually, so much closer to 40. Time really starts to stand out, right, as a thing you battle, because it's like every day, every moment, every year that passes, your clock is ticking. You start to see the end of your life more so than the beginning of your life when you hit, closer to 40. And I think in my 20s, I wish I'd known that. I probably would have spent my time a little differently. I spent a lot of my time working, a ton of my time working. Well, I think that's a good thing. Like you have to make sacrifices to be successful. One of the sacrifices I made was time. I sacrificed time with people, and or for myself in order to build a business. But I think there's also a happy medium. I think in your 20s, you're all or nothing and not, somewhere in between. And I think I wish that I'd realized how important time would be to me, and I probably would have been somewhere in between. I missed out on a lot of time with I missed out on a lot of time with my dad because I spent a lot of time working, or I spent a lot of time on the road doing seminars and things. And I think when he passed away, I was 35 years old. And I think it really it stood out to me, the time that I'd given up, and for what, right? Like I always try battle in my head, like, was it worth it? And so I think in my 20s, I would definitely have adjusted how I spent my time. I would most definitely have adjusted how much or how little I focused on, on my health. And then I think another thing that I would have focused on a little more is investing, right? If you're making money. In my 20s, I didn't really do a lot of investing. I didn't invest a lot of what I was making. I made the cash, but I didn't invest the cash. And as you all know, cash devalues every day, right? Currency is worth less and less and less. And in my 20s, I was so into just stockpiling cash, just make as much as you can and save it. I never invested anything. And I never give advice now, like, to invest everything that you make, but I most definitely do more investing now in my 30s than I did in my 20s. And I think that comes along with just evolving as an entrepreneur, but also with seeing the future. At 40 years old, you start to look at, hey, one day I don't want to have to do this anymore, right? And so you think, what can I invest in now that's going to keep paying me when I'm older, right? And in your 20s, you don't really think a lot about that because, again, you're in your 20s, you're invincible, right? And so I wish that I had thought a little bit more about my future and about investing in things that would pay me in the future in my 20s. So those would be the three things I would say I wish I knew in my 20s. But I think for everybody it's different, because everybody makes different mistakes, takes different roads, takes different paths. I would say if you're in your 20s and you're listening to this, then probably those three things are things that if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to struggle with, or you're going to come to a point where you have to face. And I would say maybe listen and learn from somebody who's been there, done that, and looks back on it and say, man, maybe I wish I'd done it a little differently, right? I think sometimes we can learn the best lessons in life from the people who have already been where we're at and are looking back and saying, man, I wish I knew. And that's exactly why we decided to do this episode of the podcast. I hope that's taught you something. I hope it's given you some insight if you're younger and you're kind of on the rise, right? So that you can make some adjustments, right? And not have oh man, I wish I knew that, when you're my age, because you'll have mentors, you'll have people, you'll have access to content, information, and stories like these that will help you to adjust your path and maybe not make those same mistakes that I made. So hopefully this has helped you. And of course, I look forward to seeing you all next week with another episode of the Unlock Success Podcast.